It's intermission time. It's great to get out to the movies.
So I'm Megan Braun, and I host this podcast, the Intermission Podcast, produced by the Synagogue. And can you introduce yourself for the listener of who you are, what you do, and the film that we'll be talking about today?
I'm Radu Jude. I'm a Romanian filmmaker. And One Too Special is releasing now in United States my film title Kontinental 25.
Sweet. I'm excited to talk about it. And then we'll also talk a bit just about the films that you love. I have here some of your prior projects, Afarim, I Do Not Care If We Go Down in History as Barbarians, Bad Luck Binging, or Loony Porn. Okay, and this is a question that we ask everyone that comes on the show. But if you were to pick a movie that describes your life right now, whatever comes to mind, what do you think of?
I don't know, the whole TikTok maybe.
Why?
Well, because it's not structured, because it's wild, because it's full of bad taste, because it's full of vulgarity, because it's a mix of all things, and because it's the form of my brain much more than a particular film, I guess.
That's we've never had anyone say that, but that I get where you're going with that. All right, well, now we're going to get into your general movie taste. I'm curious about some films that made you fall in love with cinema in the first place.
It's an interesting question because some of the films I deeply loved when I was a teen. I discovered cinema by accident through a high school colleague when I was 15 years old and 15, 16. So I've seen a lot of films, but I think the one that particularly made me aware of cinema as a form of expression was actually Shining by Stanley Kubrick, which I show in a projected videotape in Romanian Cinematheque, and then more or less in the same time it was in cinema, or a little bit later, Natural Born Killers by Oliver Stone.
Yeah.
Which is not a film which I have the same attraction to now, but as a teenager it felt wild. It felt a great film. And then going to Cinematheque, I think the first filmmaker I really enjoyed, and I still enjoy, that's the one I still enjoy as much as when I discovered when I was 16, is Luis Buñuel, the Spanish director. Who did also a lot of films in Mexico, of course, and in France.
What about his films did you resonate with?
I think what I resonated with at the time, it's not necessarily what I'm resonating with now. I think at the time I was more attracted to the absurdity of the stories and to a kind of surrealist humor or a kind of dark surrealist humor, and that was the things that at that time made me fall in love with Buñuel's movies. While nowadays I'm more attracted. Apart from what I said, I still retain that. It's more about the quality of a storyteller. I think he's a great storyteller in images, and still the non-conformism of his cinema altogether, from production stage. Some of the films were made cheap, especially the Mexican period, to the structure of the dramaturgy, and to the kind of irreverence against all sacred cows of societies.
Are there films that you loved before you truly understood why you loved it or why you resonated with it?
And some that I understood afterwards. I think yes, and I think there's a lot of avant-garde films in this way, which I can, and I still don't understand them completely, but they resonate with me for particular issues. But I think if there's one filmmaker, and there is one filmmaker who's one of the most important for me, whose films over the years I either rejected them or sometimes accepted them, or accepted partly and then always getting back to them again, and always the perspective is shifting, is Godard, is Jean-Luc Godard films,
Mm.
and especially not necessarily the one in the 60s, but the one in the 80s, and his essay films like Histoire du cinéma, which first I saw it first when I was like 25, 23, and on TV, on Arte, and the French channel that was available in Romania, and I totally rejected. I said, this is the most idiotic thing I saw in my life. And then getting back to that 10 years after, I was in awe, although I didn't understand why, and it felt like a very opaque work, and I'm still getting back to this over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Do you see your taste in film revealing something about you? Have you ever thought like why you like certain films and what do you think that is revealing about who you are as a person?
At the same time as psychoanalysis would say that everything we do or we appreciate or we like or we say is revealing, of course I think taste in films is also a revealing thing about ourselves, and this taste in my case, I think probably in everybody's case, is shifting, is changing all the time, and in my case is on one hand expanding, for instance, towards areas which were not necessarily for my interest before. I mentioned the avant-garde, I could mention this vernacular cinema, I mentioned TikTok earlier, or amateur films, these kind of things, towards everything, and in the same time is getting tighter towards what is called professional cinema or art house cinema, which I stand less and less and less. Actually, I don't like professional
What?
cinema. Art house. I
Why?
remember once I was in a jury in a film festival watching 3 films a day, and like in the second or third day, whenever the credits appeared, and all credits or most of the credits are very bombastic in cinema.
Mm-hmm.
This company presents a film by I don't know who and all this shit, and I felt like throwing up. I said, if I see one more credits like that, I'm gonna explode of disgust. Why it's a good question. I think because cinema is a discipline or an art, if you want to call it like that, and I am speaking now of all dimensions of it, either commercial or art house or experimental or documentary, that more than other arts, I think it's full of rules. I mean by that, rules of the communities or unwritten rules, so to speak. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why I have the feeling that more and more the films, maybe it's also a question of age, I'm 14, close to 49, the films resemble so much one with another, that and at the end of the day, you have the feeling, well, I don't want to watch anymore. I better
Yeah.
watch again a Lumiere film or a Warhol film or something classic, and because it's not that I wouldn't say not anymore, because I didn't make a real investigation into that, but I have the feeling that the feeling of watching something new, in part, of course, nothing can be 100% new, is so rare that you
Mm-hmm.
can see one good film, okay, it's good, but nothing new. Then another film, maybe it's not good, but again, nothing new. So to find something really new here and there, it's so rare.
Because you feel that way as someone watching films, do you feel like when you're making your films, that's something that you're actively trying to pursue? Is to make something that doesn't feel like a film prior?
Not necessarily, because I think that's impossible to predict,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm not able to. So what I want as a viewer is not necessarily what I pursue as a filmmaker. It's a bit
Yeah.
like, um, because what I try to do, and maybe this is half the answer, is to make things I don't know how to, and
Hmm.
sometimes from here can appear something that can be interesting or a little bit new, or but for me it's very important not to know, to be at least a part. Of course you cannot do only what you don't know, but I need to have for each film to be something in the method of making, in some aspect of it or in more aspects of it that I don't know how to do. So it's of course very neurotical because it makes you desperate sometimes and close to heart attack, but also it's what keeps me curious. I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
make a film in the same way. I would feel bored to death actually.
um, what is a film that you feel like you defend that maybe most people don't actually like this movie, but something about it you feel like you need to tell everyone why it's a good movie?
It's such in groups that it's so sometimes so difficult. It shifts from one category of audience to another. But let's say that I remember defending when I was in jury in Berlin Film Festival, Music by Angela Schanelek,
Mm-hmm.
which is a film I completely loved and totally loved, and I really think it's very original and very um, apart. It's like a UFO film. It's a film where the narrative dissolves itself into music,
Hmm.
and it remains somehow enigmatic. It's not a musical in itself. It's a very mysterious and original film. And well, we ended up giving it an award to it, but. It was a lot of discussion with my colleagues because some of them didn't consider it not good. I wouldn't say because we had a very good relationship with my colleagues in the jury, but they didn't see in it what I think it was so strong, or some of them didn't really see.
Yeah.
So
Wait, can you tell me the name of it again so I can watch it?
music, music.
Music.
It's
Okay.
called Music
Okay.
by Angela Schanelek, German
Okay.
filmmaker.
I'm curious to check it out myself.
Oh yeah, it's an and it's and there's another filmmaker which I'm always I think he's more respected, but sometimes I have difficulties in discussing him with some cinephiles. Is Hong Sang-soo,
Mm-hmm.
especially the last films of Hong Sang-soo. Even for me, if you want, the answer is that even myself, I become a bit schizoid when I watch the last 10 films of Hong Sang-soo, because one part of me says this is bullshit. It's nothing there. It's absolutely a ridiculous story, a ridiculous cinema, ridiculously made, very cheaply, and in the same time next second the other part of me says this is exactly why it's great, this is
Mm-hmm.
exactly why it's original, this is exactly that's why Hong Sang-soo is a genius. And next second I say, what if Hong Sang-soo is actually an idiot and actually, and then again and again and again. And I think it takes a lot of guts for him to make these films which look like nothing, and there are stories that you can watch and say, but I can make a story like that in 5 minutes, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't do because you don't want to go to this level. You say you would feel it's too low or too nothing. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the greatness of Hong Sang-soo, who I consider the most important fiction filmmaker of today.
Wow. That like whole point of if someone's a genius or are they an idiot and back and forth makes me think of when I go to modern art museums and you'll see a piece
Yeah,
of a painting and you're like, are they the smartest person? Are they just fucking with me? You know, I can't tell.
yeah. Warhol is the same. No, you see the Campbell soups or the Brillo boxes and say, what is this? It's
Mm-hmm.
or Cy Twombly, who became. And sometimes now it's interesting getting back to another question of yours. If we shift the discussion from cinema, because I think cinema encompasses everything. Is I remember
Yeah.
when I first Cy Twombly paintings. I don't know if you know them, which was more like scribbling,
Okay.
Cy Twombly. And I said, I like all the paintings here, but this Cy Twombly is the most idiotic painter I saw in my life. But something in my head stayed with me, and then I saw again, and then I saw again, and then I saw again and again. I read about, and all of a sudden, little by little, Cy Twombly became my favorite painter from the
That's
contemporary, at
really
least.
funny.
Yeah, well, but I started considering him the most idiotic thing I saw in my life. So yeah,
No, that I resonate with that a lot because I often my initial reaction is to be a hater and then something will grow on me. So that's
Uh-huh.
funny. I actually really resonate with that path. I even feel that way about people. Like I often will be like, I'm not too sure about this person, and then they just grow on me, you know?
Yeah, no, I think that what you said also resonates a lot with me to say, well, I'm a hater, maybe it's too strong, the word,
Mm-hmm.
but I try to resist works of art. I try when I see a film, I'm not a cinephile in this way that I need images to feed me. Or to be fed with images and I need to see 10 films a day and everything is interesting or good for something. When I see something, I try to dislike it
Hmm.
actually, and I'm conquered little by little. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
What a
It's also
funny
like in life.
perspective.
Sometimes the most intense love stories are with women or with persons that you at the beginning you
Yep.
just don't. Yeah. So maybe it's the same process. But I think it's
Yeah.
important also to see the films and everything critically
Mm-hmm.
to not to reflect to analyze them and not to get lost and conquered so easily by them.
I really am intrigued by this perspective, and I definitely want to think about this the next movie that I watch to have this mindset because I never really had this perspective switch. Another question I wanted to ask you was, do you have a memory of the first film that kind of changed a worldview that you had? And maybe not the first time, but just like a specific film that you had a worldview and a perspective about how we as humans, I don't know, live, and then you left the film and you're like, I have a really different perspective now.
I don't know, Deep Throat. I
And,
was joking.
I mean, I'm not judging. Whatever comes to mind.
I think not only Deep Throat, I think porn movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I
And
was
why?
teenage. Because I grew up in a communist dictatorship until I was close to 13, and there was no pornography, there was no nudity, the dictatorship was also very prudish.
Uh huh.
So the first, I think it was just 1 year after the revolution or something. So I was like 14, and I saw a porn film,
Mm-hmm.
and that was so shocking, exciting. I mean, yeah, exciting in all ways of the word, in all meanings
Mm-hmm.
of the word, but so shocking to see that I think that changed my view about the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair. I know you said it as a joke, but that's a completely
No,
fair
no, it's not as
answer.
a joke. I mean
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
maybe the other one was much later. I think was Antonioni's films, where somehow I understood something about solitude. I think that never was never gone after that,
mm,
and then Godard again for thinking for seeing cinema thinking, and Shoah by Claude Lanzmann, and a few years ago, and I linked the same feeling with this with Shoah by Claude Lanzmann, another documentary, a film by Abbas Fadel, which is called is Homeland Iraqi Year Zero, and they are such devastating documentaries about the worst that human history and human and the present the today world can offer, that is both films are really um, shakening. I don't know.
now I want to get into talking about your film, Continental,
We
25.
lower the level now.
No. Can you tell the listener just a little description or synopsis of the film?
Well, it's a film about a middle-aged woman who works as a bailiff in a justice system in the city of Cluj in Romania, in Transylvania. And as she becomes involved, so to speak, in a tragedy, and she feels somehow responsible for this tragedy, she tries to ease her soul, her pain, getting into discussions and walking around and having some adventures in order to find a way out of this spiritual crisis, which might be deep or might be superficial. It's for the viewers to decide. It's a spiritual crisis which might be authentic or fake, or both in the same time. It's a spiritual crisis that could be representative for our times or not. I don't know.
Yeah. The film, like you said, revolves around a moral crisis. Do you see Orshoya responsible or complicit or trapped? Like, do you have your own consensus?
I guess the film tries to describe. It's an old idea of the French filmmaker who was also a critic, Jacques Rivette, who for me is another model. And he, in an essay, speaks about how the most important thing is to describe. Mm-hmm. We must start with the art of description, he says. And in a way, the film is only trying to describe, of course, using elements of storytelling and of fiction. The film tries to describe a system, a complex web of relations, of mutual needs, of mutual interactions, all these kind of things. And people exist in this web in gray areas, according to what you asked, in such a way that everybody could be considered somehow complicit, everybody could be considered a victim, everybody could be considered guilty. And I think that's part of the modern world, even in Romania, and I try to describe a kind of what a life crisis or what a life moment can look like in a kind of web like that.
And you kind of alluded to this, but do you see her as representative of a broader system in Romania? And like, what is this saying about the culture there?
I don't like when films try to be not particular, but representing categories. So
yeah,
I'm interested more in particulars and in what is specific to a place, to a situation, to a human, to a person. But of course, then you can see someone as being a representative of a certain category. And I think, if you take the recent history of Romania, it's a country that went out from a long, brutal communist dictatorship 35 years ago, then had like 10, 15 years of transition towards capitalism, and in the last 20 years, more and more a capitalist system that brought a lot of good things, a lot of benefits, especially after joining European Union in 2007, but also a new type of people, a new type of problems, and new types of inequalities, and new types of being outcast, out of society, kicked out, etc. So in a certain way, I think that the character represents, let's say, a kind of middle class that is growing in the last 20 years, because one of the problems of Romania that we didn't have a middle class, or it was a very, very little middle class. Now this middle class is growing, and the problems are which this category are facing somehow are different than they was before. So in a certain way, one can see Orshoya is being a representative of this new middle class from Romanian society.
Do you personally relate to her at all, to her scenario? Do you see anything in you in her, or is this more of a character that you have more of a distance with, that you just wanted to tell her story and there wasn't like a relationship to?
Well, that's a difficult question for me, because of course I'm having a kind of empathy and an understanding towards the character. In the same time, I must admit that myself, there are many vague and opaque and non-clarified things in the story or in the film or in the characters that even myself I don't know. But when I say I don't know, it's the same that if you question yourself, I mean, if you question you in your life, you discover that in the end you don't know, not even your kids or your partner or your parents. If you think deeper, if you say, oh, what do you think? Do you think you know exactly what your wife or what your husband or lover is thinking about you or about? Say, yeah, I know. But then if you really get into that, you discover that maybe it's not that clear. And the more you know about someone, somehow from a certain perspective, the mystery deepens. And so I think it's, well, not to say it's the same thing like in the real life, but here is the same. The more I'm thinking about the character and her problems, there's a big part of mystery that grows. Actually, it's not. So I don't know. I don't know her. And I think that's also, I hope it's interesting for the viewers, or even rewarding, or even a pleasure. I believe cinema should be pleasurable in certain ways. Now the notion of pleasure, of course, is very subjective sometimes, or can shift from one moment to another. But I think one of the pleasure is exactly this for this film, to think about this character and and her problems, and to say, well, is it authentic? Is it fake? Is it half and half? How would I be in that situation? What she do? What shouldn't she have done? Etc. Etc. I think it's a good film for this. I hope. I don't know.
And my final question for this section on your film is, what feeling do you want people to leave the theater with after watching your movie? Is there like a takeaway or a mood you want them to be in? Or is that even something that matters to you?
Say, what a great filmmaker. That's all I care about.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay, I have this little game to wrap us up. There's no right or wrong answers. It's kind of a rapid fire. I'm going to say a statement, and then you just tell me if you agree or disagree, and then we move on. Cinema is inherently political.
I agree.
Streaming is killing film culture.
I don't agree.
Most films are too long.
Only mine.
Ambiguity is more honest than resolution.
No, I disagree.
Filmmakers have a responsibility to challenge their audience.
Yes.
If a film is misunderstood, that's partly the filmmaker's fault.
Partly, yes. But it's good to be misunderstood.
Audiences today are less patient with difficult films.
No, it's the same.
The way a story is told matters more than the story itself.
Oh, both. So I would say I would disagree because, but not because the story means more than.
Yeah.
You should rephrase it.
Yeah. Style is just as important as substance.
Yes, I agree.
Awards don't reflect the best films of the year.
Absolutely, they don't reflect that. 1000%.
All right. Well, that is all I had for you today. I typically like to leave and end the episode with a film recommendation. So if you could tell the listeners a movie that you think they should watch, obviously outside of your film, if one comes to mind.
Well, I won't recommend anything because I have the film out now. So if people go to see other films, there's a smaller chance they would go to see my movie. So
and where can they see your film?
No idea. There's a few cinemas, and I think in the same time I know there are the films of a few filmmakers I admire, like Nadav Lapid's film called Yes, and Christian Petzold's film called Mirror Number 3, and Alexander Koberitze's film called Dry Leaf. And I recommend these three films. Honestly, much better than my film, which I would advise viewers not to go. And,
I actually just recorded with Christian for Mirrors Number 3. So we had our episode with him last week. So I agree, a good movie. But yours is as well.
Well, I don't know. It's but Petzold is great. Petzold is like a model for me.
Oh, that's cool.
But he loves cinema so much. He loves all these American films. He remembers scenes, characters. I forget everything,
Honestly, I forget too. Whatever. Who cares?
I'm happy to do that.
Good evening.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to leave us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. To stay in touch, follow our Instagram page at It's Intermission Time and share with your friends. As always, Intermission is produced by Giselle Chu and Olivia Dean. and of course, hosted by yours truly, Megan Braun. This episode is brought to you by The Synagogue.